Good morning. How is everybody this morning? Um, Thank you for joining me on my Facebook Live this morning. As always, please feel free to ask questions in the comments and I will answer throughout the live. So just ask away. And if you are listening to the recording, I will regularly check back and answer your questions. So for those of you on the call, say hello. Tell me your favorite thing about your dog, but this time I want you to tell me your favorite spot your dog likes to be cuddled. We feel all dogs like to be touched all over, but every dog has their thing. My Siberian loved me to rub his eyes. My border collie, one of my border collies likes me to scratch him behind the ears. Every dog has their thing. So tell me the favorite thing your dog has about being handled or touched. Okay, so while we're giving people a couple of minutes to join us, I'm going to talk about something that came up a couple of times this week. We're working with a reactive dog, and let's face it, every dog is reactive to something. There's no such thing as perfect, right? Our goal is perfect, but we don't get to perfect. So that means once in a while your dog goes, ooh. Even who's now 10-year-old border collie, who's pretty well behaved, I took him near a dock diving pool and he totally barked and lunged till I was like, hey, what are you doing? And he was like, oh, sorry, I got a little too excited. And the funny part is, he hasn't done dock diving since he was 6 months old, but the splashing of the water was like, crazy. So all dogs are reactive to some extent. And you got to never remember, like, you always have to remember dogs are dogs. Um, Yesterday I was speaking to one of my clients and her dog is a little reactive. And she said, oh, I'm just worried he would ever bite someone or he could be aggressive. Dogs are dogs. We have to remember that. Every dog in the right situation will bite. They are dogs, they are animals. That happens. That doesn't mean they're going to bite. It just means you just protect them to not put them in those situations like being cornered or they're not feeling well, stuff like that. Okay, back to what I was talking about. Um, so whenever you're working with a reactive dog, distance is your friend. You want to, if your dog's reacting to something and you put distance between you and the something, your dog is better capable of handling that. And that's the perfect situation because you're trying to teach your dog to handle different stimuli, different environments, and stay calm and under threshold. So if you can add distance, you can have success and a rewardable behavior. So for example, I had a call this week and the client said, oh, my dog is scared of children. Every time he sees children, he starts to bark and lunge. And she's like, I've been trying to find kids to socialize with, but he keeps lunging and barking, so nobody wants me to lend me their children, which she understood. So when working with a dog who's excited or worried about something, you want to be successful, just like I was saying. And you have to expose them to the something, in this case, kids, but you don't have to expose them up close. I find that a lot of people think that socializing requires touching. Oh, my dog has to allow a kid to pet him to get comfortable with dogs or to get comfortable with children. And that's where we're just pushing them into failure over and over and over. You want to start far enough away that can be successful. So in this case, with children, I would go find a playground and I would set my dog up 200 feet away because I don't want to scare the kids and I don't want the dog to have a bad experience. I want the dog to understand every time I see children, good things happen. And if I keep putting him in situations where every time he sees children, bad things happen, he'll start associating children with not feeling great. So I would start with the Get It game. Remember that from a few Facebook Lives ago, and I'll put out the link in the comments that you can get our free handout for the Get It game. So you're holding the dog's collar, and can he watch the children calmly? And you're rewarding that. And then you go to the ODR game, observe, don't react. So you let go of the collar, you're holding the leash. Can you watch them calmly? Um, by the way, you can find examples of these training exercises on my website, www.dogtraining.ca, under the resource section. So as the distance starts to work, your dog will voluntarily ignore the kids. I promise you it happens always. Eventually the dog, and eventually doesn't mean days and days and days. But if you're far enough away, the dog will eventually go, okay, I do not need to watch that. What if I pay attention to you? And this is when you start asking for cues like sit or heel or whatever, or come, whatever it is your dog can easily do. We're asking for a simple trick that your dog doesn't have to think real hard because part of his brain is still engaged in those kids, but you're teaching him to work during that distraction. Um, this might take one session, this might take four, but it will happen. If your dog can't stay calm, go further. If you can get to working so the dog can ignore the children in under 15 minutes, next time you go closer. So you're always pushing that line to whatever your dog needs. If he needs further, you go further. If he needs closer, you go closer. So many good experiences will give you a dog that is socialized with kids or at least comfortable with kids around. You can work the up close once he's comfortable far away, but trying to work the up close when he's not comfortable far away just leads to failure. So, any questions on this? I know this is a little off topic, but um, oh, pitties and belly rubs. My new border collie puppy Wicca is a smooth, so she has a lot less coat than my other two who are roughs, and she has the little pink naked belly that she loves to be rubbed. Thank you for sharing that, Jennifer. So any questions on what we just talked about with the kids? No? Okay, great. I will move on. Okay, so back to today's topic for today. What is a cue? I've been thinking about this topic a lot lately. I'm writing the curriculum for our new course all about getting fantastic obedience. Basic cues like sit, down, stay, no matter the distraction. What I'm seeing is my clients, I have lots of clients who really enjoy working with their dogs. And they don't necessarily want to do a sport, they just enjoy training their dogs. And they're having a hard time finding the information they need to take it to the next level. Yes, you can pull out your cookies and your dog can sit, and your dog's great at that. But how do you get it to the next level? How do you get it to the dog who can sit from 20 feet away? Or you can throw the ball and he's chasing it, and you go sit, and your dog sits. That's this course is it's going to be an online course, and it's all about creating that next level of an obedience. So, a cue is a signal for someone, in this case your dog, to do something. For example, you ask your dog to sit, that's the cue, and then your dog sits, that's the response. Here's where this gets interesting. What cue did your dog respond to? What I see from my clients is people think their dog sits for one thing, but they really sit for something else. So, um, did your dog did you have to pull out a cookie to get your dog to sit? This might be because the cookie is the cue to sit, not your verbal. Try it. Walk around the house with your dog following you. Look at him, hold out the cookie and say nothing. Keep your body still. Like, don't give a sit signal. Don't lift up your hand. Just show him the cookie. Does your dog sit? Then you start to go, oh, the sight of the cookie is what cues my dog to sit. So whenever you hear someone say, oh, my dog only sits when I show him a cookie, then the question becomes, is the cookie the cue for sit? Not what you think it is, which could be the verbal sit. So people are like, oh, my dog is so bad. I can only get him to listen to me if I show him cookies. But it's because that's what we trained. We trained him the sight of the cookie is the cue to sit, not the verbal sit. We'll keep talking about this, but go out and try this with your dog and try to figure out exactly what gets your dog to do what you want or whatever it is you're asking. So, anyone else's dogs do this? Have you had this problem where your dog only sits after you pull out the cookie? So why does this happen? It happens because once we hold cookies in our hands, we start using them to get behavior instead of to reward behavior. You ask your dog to sit, your dog doesn't respond instantly, you show your dog the cookie. Your dog sits, you reward. I see this all the time, and I especially see it when people are teaching their dogs to come. They say the dog's name or come, and right away the dog instantly doesn't respond. They show them the cookie and go, but look, I have a cookie. Ta-da, you just trained your dog to sit for the sight of the cookie. I know you are saying, but he didn't sit when I asked. And I didn't want to repeat the cue because I've been told don't say the cue multiple times. Then my question to you becomes, why didn't he sit? So there are a number of reasons why your dog wouldn't sit when you asked. He doesn't understand the verbal as well as you think he does. Um, Again, test this. I test this I want to clearly understand what my dogs know and what they don't know, because that information tells me my next training. So I say my dog's got a great verbal sit, and I'm working a 6 month old, almost 6 month old puppy right now. So I'm testing her sit, her understanding of cue. Sit is her strongest. Down is coming along nicely. Um, Stand is non-existent. Her verbals. Her hand signal to stand is beautiful. What her recall is coming along. So that's it. It's always understanding what your dog knows. It's There's no good or bad. It's just clarity. So, how you're going to go test this? You're going to walk around the house, and this time you're not going to show them your cookie. You're just going to stop moving and say sit. I want you to be really aware that you're not giving a hand signal, you're not leaning forward, you're not stepping towards the dog, you're just stopping and saying sit. I want you to reward um, as you're playing this game. And if you get more than two failures in a row, so if you get two that you ask for sit, your dog goes, what? Excuse me. Then I want you to make it easier. Go back to a hand signal for a few reward and then go back to your verbal. So, when you're doing this game, make sure there's no distractions. So if your kids are running around the house screaming, this might not be the greatest time to test your dog's ability to sit on cue. Um, So you've walked around the house, you ask your dog for a sit, and your dog nails it. Great job. Awesome. Now you're going to make it a little more challenging. What if you sit down in a chair? Can you look at your dog and ask him to sit? Can he? Awesome. Great job. Now you're going to keep asking. So what if you lie down on the couch and ask your dog to sit? Still good? Awesome. Reward your dog. Great job on training. And then you add another challenge. This is the way you not only are going to build value for sitting in a variety of situations, but you're also going to have a very clear idea of what your dog can and can't do and know the next thing you're going to change. So, as soon as you lie down on the couch, your dog jumps on you and goes, hey, how are you? When you're like, sit, he's like, no, this is when I sit on your lap. Okay, well, can you do it when you sit on the couch? I would work that. And then maybe I'd kind of sit and lean on the arm. Can you sit now? Great. You might have to lie down and go back to a hand signal. Do that a few times and then work your verbal. That's it. But that's a great place to train and improve your training, not just, oh, look, I have cookies. I ask you to sit. I give you a cookie. We walk away. That's not making your dog better. Um, and this is my core belief system when I share with dogs owners is that training your dog should never go past their actual capabilities. And knowing those capabilities, the clarity is what is going to give you a huge step up in training. You want to set your dog up for success as much as possible. If you push your dog too much, you will actually slow the process down and may even cause setbacks. Human nature, we do stuff, we ask for stuff that we are pretty sure they can't do and then get upset when they don't do it. For example, your dog is chasing a bunny in the field. You call him, he doesn't come. You call him again, he doesn't come. You call him 20 times, he still doesn't come. And by now you're really mad because your dog's not coming when called. You knew your dog wasn't coming off that bunny. But we can't help it. We cannot help putting ourselves into situations like this. And this is my goal is you start to at least see those situations and be able to go, you know what, my dog's not going to come. How about I clap my hands or I walk the other way and call and the invisible leash might pull him off that bunny. Um, and this is why in this new course, I use a concept called a challenge ladder to help my students from ever over facing their dog and to understand when it goes wrong, what piece of the training was missing so that you can go and fix that. It is very important to know when a dog is overfaced, meaning he can't think because of his environment. For example, you asked your dog to sit, but you're holding his favorite ball. He is using all his brain power on the ball and can't give any of his brain power to his butt to sit. And you laugh, but you know it's true. They can't think. It's just funny. One of my border collies, it's near water. He'll look right at me, but you can tell all he's going is there's a pond right there. There's a pond right there. And you ask him to sit and he's all like, "Oh my God, I can't do it." So that's been one of my challenges with him is Where can you sit? And when you sit, you get to go swimming. And that's how we started to build being able to function closer and closer to the pond. Um, so if you ask your dog to sit, you'll say it once, make sure you're not giving any physical hand signals. You can give a hand signal if you're choosing to use that, but don't lean forward, step forward, anything that you're not aware of as a cue. So you ask your dog to sit, you're holding the ball. He's like, sorry, I can't. Okay, no problem. So then you can make it a little easier by what if I put the ball behind my back? You cue the sit again. Can your dog sit, or is he still like, no, I'm sorry, that ball is much too close? If he still can't do it, you put the ball down, put it on a table or a chair. That makes it easier than the floor for some reason, and walk 10 feet away. You ask your dog to sit. Can he sit then? And you do this until he sits, and then you release, okay, break, and you run back to the ball. So he goes, oh, if I want you to throw that ball, I have to sit when you ask me. This is a great exercise on teaching your dog to use his brain when he's focused on something else, like walking by a squirrel tree. All of a sudden, his brain is occupied by the squirrel tree, and you'd like him to stay walking with you and use part of his brain to be walking politely. So, this is how you're teaching your dog to unfocus from where he is and focus on his body. Third reason why a dog may not be paying attention to a cue is he physically cannot figure out his body. I see this a lot in young dogs. They grow fast and are unable to organize their body parts. Usually, when this is the case, your dog moves a back foot. I think in his head, he's like, I moved something, I must have sat. Sometimes I see this if you're asking your dog to sit on a hill, he can't figure out his body, or on any sort of incline or a weird surface. They're like, oh, I can't figure it out. Or they'll sit, touch their butt if the ground's wet, especially a naked bum dog. They'll sit and right away pop up. They're like, oh, no, 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 I can't, my butt can't touch wet. I had a dog who couldn't sit in her crate if her bum touched the back of her crate. So if she was standing in a crate and I walked up and asked her to sit before I released her out, she'd take a step back, which would make her bum touch the back of the crate, and then that was it. In her brain, she thought she was sitting because if you re-cued it, she started to look really stressed. And when I switched her to a bigger crate, she had no problem sitting. So it's sometimes you've got to realize that. And when I see that happening, I take a step back away from the dog, and that forces them to take a couple of steps. And as soon as they take a couple of steps, you cue the sit, and they're like, oh, yeah, I can do that. Especially if you cue the sit as they're still moving, it makes it even easier for them to sit. So, yeah, if you have a young dog, usually anywhere from like 8 weeks, 8 weeks, they can usually figure it out. But like 10, 11 weeks to like 9, 10 months, where they do all their growing, that's when you see this a lot. You sometimes see it in adult dogs, but you see it a lot in young dogs. Hopefully, I have you thinking about cues you give your dog, and if you really think they understand them. And the above example, I spoke about pulling at the cookie when your dog doesn't do as asked. Another cue I see this happen a lot too is come. I hear this all the time. My dog comes great when I shake the bag of treats. Let me paint this picture. Your dog is in the backyard. You need to go to work, so you call your dog. Your dog gives you the paw and keeps wandering around and ignores you completely. You shake the bag of cookies, and your dog comes running and you give him a cookie. What you've just taught your dog is ignore me completely when I call you, but come when you shake the bag of treats. But think about it. Why can't you teach the same response to the cue of come, or whatever cue you come, hear their name, that you get out of a bag of treats? It's just a noise. Why does the sound of a bag of treats get your dog to come, but his name doesn't? It's how we've trained it. Um, so how many times have you called his name and not expected him to come? You have to, and I'll talk about this a little bit more later, but you have to be really aware when you ask for a cue, it's not never say it twice. It's knowing what's going on. So I've asked my dog to sit and my dog doesn't. Depending on the situation, I will possibly say it twice. Like if there's a heavy distraction, I'll be calmly, not escalating my tone. I'll be like, sit. And especially if I see them hear me, they flick an ear, but they're like, oh, I'm trying, but I can't give my brain. I might cue them again, even 3 times. But if my dog's totally looking straight at me and I say sit, my dog's like, I have no clue what you're talking about. Probably not going to cue. In that case, I'm going to step backwards and then cue again. Or I'm going to remove them from the situation and go, okay, you don't understand what I'm asking you. This is my job to train you. So it's just understanding what's going on. In the next section, I'm going to talk about poisoning a cue. What this means is a cue that is no longer salient, meaning it no longer means what you want it to mean or what your dog considers it optional. A lot of dogs, you say come and they come, but sometimes they don't. So they consider this come if you want to. I had a client who did agility with me. Every time she'd call her dog's name, he would turn and run away. It was horrible. Unfortunately, she had done a great job of teaching her dog to leave her whenever she called him. And how did this happen? Think about a puppy. Your puppy's running around your house and you walk into a room and he starts to chew on a Kleenex box. What do? You call his name. You can't help it. And you walk towards them and then they run away or they grab the Kleenex and run away and now you chase them, calling their name. And this happens over and over and over. Um, and you're chasing them. So you're being a little aggressive in trying to get that Kleenex back because you need the Kleenex back. And Kleenex is not the end of the world, but what if it's your glasses or your remote or something a little more expensive? The reward comes when he leaves the Kleenex box. If your dog spits out the Kleenex box, you'll stop chasing, which for him, it's a threat, right? As soon as you move in hard, your dog's going to walk away. If you stop chasing him, that becomes a reward because you're no longer chasing him, so you're no longer threatening. So now his name predicts you chasing him and predicts him running away. So you see how now you've taught his name to mean run away. So it's a poison cue because what we expect the dog to do when we say come is not what we're getting. In this case, I would totally change the cue. And I do that sometimes. Something means something I don't want to. With my first dog, his recall was always a challenge. And when he was about 5 or 6, I changed his recall cue from come to here. Huge difference. Huge difference. There was a lot of crap associated with the word come. And when I changed to a new cue here, I rebuilt it and his recall improved huge. So, does this sound familiar to anybody? Does anybody have this problem where they have a cue that's supposed to mean one thing and means something else? Okay. So, how do you protect your cue? First, remember these are sound bites. Your dog does not speak the language. Be very aware of when you give a cue. This doesn't mean you can't have conversations with your dog. And I swear, sometimes they totally understand. I'll give a full sentence and my dog goes and does what I ask. But those aren't cues. I don't know, but they're conversations. They're not cues. What I mean by being aware of your cue is when you give a cue, is does your dog have the ability to perform the cue? And what I was saying earlier, for example, your dog is on leash. You say come and you walk away pulling the leash. Did your dog come? When I say come, I want my dog to stop what he's doing, turn, come towards me, and end up in front of me. That's what I expect. And actually, my come is his name. If you pulled him on leash, he didn't in fact come. You had to pull him to get him to come, which is really the opposite of come because now what happens is when you say come, the dog gets ready for you to pull. So actually tucks away from you instead of moving towards you, which is the exact opposite of what we want. And your dog quickly learns to ignore come because you're going to physically move him. So come ends up having no meaning. Does that make sense? Can you think of situations where you are giving cues, but you're actually not expecting anything? In this situation, sure. Um, so in this situation, how I would handle this is let's say my dog's sniffing or whatever, I'm having a conversation with someone and it's time to go. I might say their name, acknowledge them. I might just put mild pressure on the leash and my dogs understand pressure on the leash means come towards me. Um, I might give a heel cue or a walk with me cue that tells them, okay, this is what I expect you to come in beside me. Does that make a little more sense of how I would use that? But I watch my clients and they're like, come every 2 minutes, come, come, come. Is that something you've been doing? Think about that. Um, and if I give the heel cue and my dog doesn't respond, then we go back to the above questions. Why didn't my dog respond? Does he not understand the cue? Is the environment too much? Or is he physically unable to perform the cue? If you want your training to go to the next level, cue clarity and understanding is pivotal. This creates a dog who understands what you're asking and how to perform it. And and you the confidence to understand what your dog is capable of doing. Um, I think sometimes we have. Last night I worked stays in my in my beginner agility class, and every single person said, "Oh, she can do this at home," or "I'm not sure what's going to happen." So the more you put your dog in all these situations, your confidence in what your dog is capable of doing grows, which makes you a lot more calm, which makes your dog a lot more obedient because you're not panicking. So is this what you're looking for? The next level of training, what I call the wow, um, what I call the wow level, when your dog surprises you with what he understands. I honestly, I've been doing this for a very long time. I've been training dogs for over 20 years. I started with correction training like almost everybody did 20 years ago. And I learn more every year. I take seminars, stuff like that. And now my dogs have skills that literally sometimes I'm like, wow, I can't believe you could do that. So this is what I call wow level. I am currently working on an online course to be available this fall. This course will teach you how to get the wow level of performance. Or just send me a message or an email if any of this resonates with you. Head on over to www.dogtraining.ca and contact us about our one-on-one coaching options. For dog sport competitors or families simply trying to help their amazing four-legged companions become the best they can be, while opening up a world of adventures and new possibilities. Okay, I have a question. Is it wrong to use your dog's name, then the cue excuse me, example, Finn, come? No, there's nothing wrong with that. You have to define what everything means to you in your head, and then you can define it to your dog. I use my dog's name as a recall. But I can use it like if they're looking the other way, I might go Fido sit because Fido will make them turn and the sit. So if you want to go Finn come, that's perfectly fine. I would teach them separately. So when I teach come, I teach it as just come because usually when I'm teaching come, the dog is paying attention. And when I teach Finn, I would use it separately. So it's like double cueing, and that's fine as long as you're 100% aware of what it is. Um, but technically, if they're looking at you, you shouldn't have to say their name because they're looking at you, but you could say come. So my question to you, Kathy, does your dog come when you say Finn, come? So if it does, it's working. Good job. Okay, guys, let me know if you have any questions. I will hang out for another 10, 15 minutes and answer them. Join us next week on our Facebook Live on Friday, August 14th at 10 a.m. If you have any subjects you would like covered, please let us know. And have a wonderful weekend and happy trading, everybody. Bye for now.